What is going on, Bucs fans? JC Allen here, back on another edition of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network, and it is new week after the bye. Bucs are coming back a little healthier. I don't know how too much, and they face the New England Patriots, who are just cruising right now. They're absolutely on a roll, 7-2 in the season. Just having beaten the division rivals for the Buccaneers, the Atlanta Falcons, last week. A score 24-23, and a crazy ending of that game. So that's next on docket for the Buccaneers, and it's a tough task. And what looked like it might not have been uh, to begin the season, but Mike Vrabel's got these boys playing well, and Drake May, he is the truth. We'll get into this matchup. We'll get into who's coming back from injuries. Why did the Bucs stand pat at the deadline? Doesn't make sense. And just kind of preview this game. Where can the Bucs take advantage of this Patriots defense, Patriots offense? Where can they find ways to make this a game? Because to be honest with you, you look at this Patriots team, they are doing really, really well. And this is going to be a difficult challenge for them. So we'll get into all that and more right after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Welcome back to the other side of the Pirate Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. If you guys could do me a favor, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you guys are watching on Twitter, come on over, check us out, and everyone listening in podcast format later on after it's published. Appreciate you guys as always. Come check us out on YouTube sometime. Where to start? I guess we should start with the trade deadline. Should we start with the injuries? Let's see, flip coin. Let's do the trade deadline. Surprise, surprise. The Buccaneers did absolutely nothing during this trade deadline, which is on par for the course for Jason Light. He's only made one trade in season in his 11 years as GM, and that was the year the Bucs won the Super Bowl in 2020 when they made the move for Steve McClendon after Vita Vea went down with a season-ending injury. Of course, Vita Vea came back in the playoffs, but at the time knocked them out of the regular season, and they got that deal done. There were deals, I think, it was a crazy trade deadline to start with. Sauce Gardner, no one had that on their bingo card. Now that they Quinnen Williams, we can talk about the foolishness of those trades. We can talk about whatever you want. But in the end of the day, the Bucs were never going to be big fish hunting. They were big game hunting. Obviously, Jalen Phillips goes to the Eagles, edge rusher out of Miami for a third-round pick. Bucs weren't going to be in on that either. When you look at what Jason Light and his staff has been able to do, and not just the first round or the second round, but going to that third round, that fourth round, that fifth round, 6th and 7th to an extent. I won't really count that because, Tez Johnson, Elijah Klein, and I think Josh Hayes and Devin Culp is all you got. And really, Tez Johnson's shown something, but I don't think the other three have. Certainly Josh Hayes. You guys have plenty of thoughts on Josh Hayes. But Elijah Klein really hasn't had that opportunity yet to step in. And he did some good things when he was in the game, but there's definitely some growth that needs to, and some limitations on him as just an athlete in general. That's why he was available in the 6th round. And Devin Culp hasn't had that opportunity yet. So, he was doing really good in camp, showed out a little bit last year when he got his opportunity. Preseason, they didn't throw to the tight ends really at all. But I think, there's opportunity for him to get in here and make a difference, especially with some of these guys injured and out. And we'll get into those in a minute. But, I think what Bucs fans, they didn't want a groundbreaking move. They didn't want something that was going to set, and some did. Some said, hey, we're here. We have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. We got to push these chips in and get someone that's going to really make a difference and get us over that hump to win the Super Bowl. Other fans just wanted them to send a 6th or 7th round pick for, a linebacker like a Tyrell Dodson from the Dolphins, or, maybe try to whittle down Quincy Williams from the Jets at linebacker, or maybe get a defensive tackle from somewhere. Or, I was a proponent for a right guard help. But nothing materialized for them. And that's not due to trying. Even the Patriots, who they're going up against, Mike Vrabel said, you either make a deal or you don't. It's like you're pregnant. You're either pregnant or you don't. So, there were certainly phone calls, not just this week, not just on Tuesday, leading up to this and around the league to see what the parameters and hey, if XYZ happened, would you be willing to move XY so-and-so, and what would the price be? And et cetera, et cetera. It just nothing materialized to where the Bucs felt comfortable moving a future asset. And again, I don't know if there was anything there for them or available for them that would have required a 6th and 7th, because I think they would have looked into that a little bit more, even if it was a pick swap type deal. I'm pretty sure teams were hard, and we heard on Quincy Williams was a 4th, Jordan Brooks was a 4th. Some of these guys probably a 5th. And when you look at what Jason Light has done and his staff in the last couple of drafts, just look at the last 3 first, third round picks they had, right? You're talking about Tyke Smith, Jalen McMillan, and Jacob Parrish, right? Do you want to move on from a cost-controlled guy who you've been really good at? And again, the gravy train is going to stop eventually. They're going to have some bad picks. Maybe Chris Braswell is kind of looking like that right now. Kalijah Cansey, obviously a dominant beast when he's on the field, but injuries have really started to take his career. I wouldn't call him a bust at all. I don't know if I'd call Braz a bust either, especially late in the second round. It's hard to bust on picks. But I do think that, you look at Bucky Irving, you look at Cade Otton, Rachaad White, 3rd round pick, you look at Payne Durham, you look at some of Savassi Dennis, and I know you guys have plenty of thoughts on Savassi Dennis, but those are just the type of players you can get there at those picks. And Voss has really come on the last couple of games on the defensive side. And as hopefully this bye week was a good opportunity for him to go back, self-scout, and realize, the mistakes he's making in coverage, because you guys and myself as well, we're all hyping up his coverage abilities. He's obviously a tremendous run defender. We've seen what he can do when pressuring the quarterback. He's got several, at least 1 sack, if not 2, but several batted down passes as well. Good pressures too. So, I think Bucs fans wanted someone to bring into platoon with him, again, like a Tyrell Dodson type or another edge rusher out there. I don't know, Matthew Judon or Bradley Chubb were guys that were, but maybe an Arden Key type, so, there is some frustration amongst Bucs fans for sure that they weren't able to get anything done. But I think there's probably some frustration, with Jason in the front office, that they weren't able to find something to help this team. I wrote an article before the trade deadline talking about the difficult position he was put in, right? As the GM of the team, you have to think about the now and the future, right? So you look at all the injuries that have taken over this team. You're missing, your starting defensive tackle for the season. You're starting right guard for the season. Mike Evans is gone for most likely the season, maybe a playoff. Jalen McMillan, we'll get into that. Because new information came out when we jump into injuries, but he's mostly likely out for most of this season. Now, Chris Godwin's missed several last games. Bucky Irving is still dealing with injuries. So it's like, do you want to give up a premium pick to add to this team that is down so many players already, even though it looks like they're in a good position to potentially make a run to the Super Bowl this year? Or do you hold on to those picks and say, hey, we know what we can do. We know what our weaknesses are. We know what we have for holes coming. I mean, remember, next year there's several people who are in line. Cade Otton's a free agent. Mike Levante are free agents. Both of those guys, those deals are up. There's, a couple of restricted free agents. Rachaad White's a free agent. You're going to need some of those picks to bolster this roster back up. And they landed a starting running back in Bucky Irving in the 4th. They can certainly get a complimentary back in the 5th round that can come out and do some things in the pass game, in the run game, and stuff like that. And I think that's when you start to look, they're going to need a backup swing tackle, right? Charlie Heck's only on a 1-year deal. They like Chukwuma, but can he develop, or do they want to get someone else in there as well? You're going to need guard depth. They went with Luke Haggard over Elijah Klein, and Luke Haggard's been in the practice squad the last 3 years. Elijah Klein, was on the active roster last year. So there's like several question marks here that, on this offense and on this defense next year, that you're going to have some money to spend. You got to pay Baker. That's another thing. Baker's up for a new deal. He's got 1 year left, but you want to get him locked in long-term. And that number is going to jump significantly from where it's at. We're talking $55-60 million a year for Baker Mayfield, more if they win the Super Bowl or if he wins the MVP, which I think he's not in the race for, if you look at the numbers, but if he starts to play the second half like he did in the beginning of the first half, I think he jumps back into that conversation there. So there's a lot of things that he needs to weigh out when it comes to making a deal. And I get it. I think there was there's definitely an opportunity to improve this club, especially with all the injuries. But if you can't find one, you can't find one. And I mean, that's what it comes down to. They definitely made the phone calls. They definitely did their due diligence, and just nothing materialized. And that happens for a lot of teams. Happened to the Patriots, who the Bucs are going against. So, I don't fault them for not making a move. It would have been nice to make a move to help shore up a position, but sometimes the cards aren't on the table for you to do that. So they're going to pass for me on that, especially it's just not in his MO either. But, part of the reason why I feel like they didn't make a move is because there is some good news and some silver linings with this injury front. Luke Edeke, his practice window was open this week, and so far he's been practicing all week. He was limited yesterday, limited today, the day before that. We'll see what comes out as far as today. I have a feeling that there's a possibility that he could be cleared. We'll be getting that information soon as Todd Bowles practice ends up and Todd Bowles starts to, uh, tell us who's going to be ruled out and who's not going to be ruled out. So we'll get all that information shortly, probably while we're still on the podcast, and I'll give that to you. So that's he's such a tone setter on the offensive line. Like he's the asshole on the offensive line that you need, and Cody was right there with him. So having at least one of those guys back, and again, it's the same thing that Tristan Wirfs did. Obviously, he didn't have a great game against the Saints last week. Chase Young was giving him some fits, but we saw the upgrade of Ben Bredesen when Wirfs comes in. We whoever it is, when you have that caliber of guy next to you, it raises the floor of the other guy because there's so much more. You have a guy you can count on, and not that the Bucs haven't been able to count on Charlie Heck. They haven't, but if they had, it's just a different animal having a guy like Luke Edeke. I think he's probably one of the top 3, if not top 5 right tackles in the league when he's healthy. And he brings that dog and sets the tone and sets the edge for the offensive line, especially in the run game. So having him back is going to potentially be huge if they get him back this week. If he's not back this week, I think he's definitely back next week. So good sign for him. Unfortunately, there are still several players that the Buccaneers are not going to be having available. First of all, we'll start from least kind of important. Marquise Watts, he's dealing with a hand injury, has not practiced the last 3 days. He will be out. Of course, Marquise Watts being out puts a little bit more pressure on that edge rushing room because Hassan Reddick also out with that ankle knee injury, didn't practice. Doesn't look like he'll be back this week at all. So you really only have Yaya Diaby, Chris Braswell, and Anthony Nelson. Those are your only 3 edge rushers you have healthy right now. They're definitely going to have to bring up Mohamed Kamara from the practice squad again. So they'll give you 4 guys to rotate. Hopefully he'll get some more snaps to show what he can do. This guy who I really like coming out of college last year. He can show what he can do. And he's more in the similar vein of a David Walker type, of a Hassan Reddick type, more of that, smaller, speedier guy that uses, still got good power, but, he's going to work more on his speed rush and his ability to bend and turn the corner and relentlessness just as a pass rusher than really, speed to power and stuff like that. It's more kind of how Yaya and Braswell play. So good to have those contrasting styles. We'll see what he gets. And here we go. Breaking news. Todd Bowles confirms Chris Godwin, Buck Irving, Hassan Reddick, and Marquise Watts are out. So they will not be playing again. I was working my way up to those guys, but the Reddick situation definitely throws a wrinkle. They don't have anybody else on the practice squad other than Mohamed Kamara either at the edge position. So they are rolling in with 4 edge rushers, and that's how they're going to play if they do elevate Mohamed Kamara, which I think is a foregone conclusion. The Patriots have the best run defense in the league. So not having Bucky Irving, who's still dealing with foot and shoulder injuries, and according to one of the ESPN guys, Jeremy Fowler, it's more of the shoulder injury. And I think it's more, and even Todd kind of leaned into that a little bit this week and said, he's running, Chris is running, they're running, but we got to see them in practice and see how they respond to, contact and stuff like that. So it's really a shoulder injury, I think, that is keeping Buck Irving out at this point in time, more so than that foot. Again, didn't practice this week, already been ruled out. We'll see if he can come back next week, but I don't even know if that's a lock. I'm thinking maybe by the Rams game, hopefully they can get him back by then, which, of course, they have the Pats, the Bills, and then the Rams, and then the Cardinals to finish out the month for your final game in the month of November. That's Thanksgiving weekend, which Chris Godwin could potentially be back for that Cardinals game. As Jeremy Fowler reported, his timeline is end of November, early December. So the Bucs, they just are not getting any help with injuries this year. They're just being ravaged, and it's just taking a toll on what they're able to do, both offensively and defensively, as though not as much defensively because they're still getting after Elijah Roberts. Credit to him. We talked about him last time, but Elijah Roberts has really stepped up and filled in that role, and having him and Logan Hall and Greg Gaines and CJ Brewer to rotate, they've got enough there. Elijah Cansey would have taken it to another level, and obviously missing Hassan Reddick. Nelly's not going to have games like that every week, guys. It's just not going to happen. He's steady. He's going to set the edge well. He'll get some pressure here and there, maybe a sack, but he's not going to be having an all-star game, the player of the week type of game. That was awesome for him. He's such a chill guy, such a nice guy. So super happy that he got to, go out there and make all those plays, but don't expect that every week. But with Chris and Bucky, and we'll extend this to J-Mac and Mike Evans too. J-Mac, who turns out he didn't just sprain his neck, he broke bones in his neck, which is crazy to have left out when you're talking about his injury. He's still got a brace on, he's still taking it easy. I don't even know if he comes back this year, to be honest with you, but it'd be the same timeline, I think, for Mike, like December, mid to end December, beginning of the playoffs, maybe. And then and he's going to have to start ramping up soon too, get cleared and ramped up. They're not just going to be like, all right, he's good, and then throw him out there. I mean, he hasn't taken any contact football, anything really. I'm sure he's still, I don't even know. I don't know if he can run. I don't know if he can run with the broken bones in his neck healing, because that pressure, boom, 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 like that pressure when you're running. I don't know. There's such an enigma with him and a mystery about what's going on with J-Mac. And since we found out those bones, man, that takes it to another level. So they're going to be without him. They're going to be without Mike. And now Chris Godwin out until end of November, December, per Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. That takes it to they're hurting. They're hurting. And they're going to need guys to continue to step up. Tez Johnson, Emeka Egbuka seems like he was running back at full speed. According to Todd Bowles this week, he looked really good. Luke Gedeke will officially be questionable. But getting Emeka back, Tez has got to step up. I mean, Sterling's got to step up. And really the way this offense functions needs to change. It needs to change. Like, you've got to, and this is huge for this week's, you've got to just take what you're getting and move the ball down the field by 1,000 paper cuts. I think and of course, Liam Cohen was a players over plays guy, and so is Josh Grizzard. I'm assuming, that kind of comes through that whole Shanahan McVay style, players over plays. So they're missing a lot of players. And Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots, he's back after being ruled out with a concussion. He's good to go. They're probably going to single him up, to be honest with you, on on Emeka Egbuka. So it's not going to be much there. There's really not going to be much there for them to exploit, I don't think. Their running attack, again, has not been good for the Bucs. They are near the bottom of the league in rushing. And, they're down at 24th in rushing, all the way down from 5th last year. And New England's defense is the best. So without Bucky Irving, now Rachaad White and Sean Tucker, without these other guys, it's going to be a difficult matchup for this is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a really tough game for the Buccaneers, I think. And we're in the middle of a cold front, so it's not like it's super hot. It's just barely 80 today, but there's no humidity really. So you're not like, it's going to be a difficult game for the Buccaneers this week. On the offensive side of the ball, you're facing some challenges because this Pats defense, they've got some players. They got some playmakers. This defensive front of Barrymore, Tonga, and Milton Williams has been phenomenal. Again, number one rushing defense right now. They are shutting things down, and they are getting pressure on quarterbacks like nobody's business. It's going to be a really difficult time for the offensive line to block these guys. And, oh, by the way, Kayvon Chason and Harold Landry, they're two of their free agent acquisitions, have been playing really good ball as well. So you're dealing with a very difficult front three And then you've got some edge rushers that are going to come in. I mean, Chazon has 5.5 sacks this season and a forced fumble, kind of written off as, a bust. And he's kind of resurrected his career a little bit. And Mike Vrabel has these guys playing extremely tough. And Harold Landry himself has 5.5 sacks and a forced fumble too. So, like, you've got guys who can come off the edge. You've got guys who can come up the middle. It's going to be a tough time for this offensive line, especially if they don't have Gedeke back. So we'll see. Questionable. He had a really good day of practice. Todd Bowles said, "We'll see what happens." Robert Spillane, I think, has been great for them. They signed him from the Raiders. He made a big play last week against the Falcons, tackling machine. I mean, he's just flies in there. And they've got good backups to circle in too, like Marte Mapu and Jahalani Tavai. Anthony Jennings can come in and give you a little bit. And then the secondary, Carlton Davis, is someone Bucs fans are very familiar with. Of course, they just paid Marcus Jones, their nickel cornerback. Craig Woodson was someone I loved coming out of the draft. He's a physical guy who can make plays on the ball as well. And, they got Jalen Hawkins there too, who he's had a pretty decent season as well. He's got 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflections, kind of coming into his own a little bit here as he finds his way into the league. So it's going to be tough for the Bucs to move the ball. When you look at the defensive rankings for the Patriots, they're in the top brackets pretty much everywhere except for one key area, and we'll get into that. But it doesn't even match up with one of the Bucs' strengths. So they're 9th total defense right now, only allowing 299 yards per game. Their passing defense isn't incredible. You can take advantage there, but Christian Gonzalez has missed a bunch of the season too. With him back, I think that will change. But they do have, I think you can attack the safeties there. I think you can find some matchups with tight ends, and I think maybe Devin Culp, you get him involved. I think you can find some matchups to exploit some of the safety play. They're only 20th in pass defense, allowing 223 yards per game there. Their rush defense, they're only allowing 75 yards on the ground. They've only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns all season. They have been shutting teams down. They don't let teams score too. They're tied for 5th in the league, 18.8 points per game, right behind the Texans, Rams, Broncos, Chiefs, and tied with the Seahawks. They are not allowing many teams to score on them. And part of that reason is because they are the 4th best team in the NFL on third down, only allowing teams to convert 33.7% of the time. However, and this is where the Bucs need to be able to take advantage, is their red zone defense is terrible. Terrible. They are ranked 32, dead last, allowing teams when they enter the 20-yard line or closer to score 75% of the drives that are out there. 75% of the drives are out there. The Bucs have to take advantage of this if they can get into the red zone. And again, they have a strong run defense. They have strong corners on the outside. There's some areas for you to take advantage of in the passing game against some of the linebackers and tight ends. And again, this is where I think to beat the Pats this week, you beat them at their own game. You beat them at what they were known for almost Brady's entirety of his career there. You dink and dunk. You take what's given and move the chains. Eat up clock, move the chains. Eat up clock, move the chains. When you get into the red zone, they let you score 75% of the time. You get into the red zone 4 times this week, they're going to let you score 3 times, statistically speaking. It's 21 points. So moving the ball down the field, dinking and dunking is going to be, I think, the best way for this Bucs team to get points on the board, because right now they're struggling. They're 17th in total yards per game on offense. The Bucs, they're 13th in passing offense. So they are moving the ball well, and that matches up again with what the Patriots are allowing. They're allowing they're 20th in the league, and they are allowing 223 yards per game. So the Bucs allowing 224, right pretty much where the Pats average is. So you can expect them to move the ball a little bit, but again, it's a lot of it's going to have to be thinking and dunking and taking what the offense gives you. the Bucs rushing offense has been terrible. They're 24th, huge landslide. And again, a lot of that, Bucky Irving's been out, Cody Malk's out. You lost Luke Gedeke for a while. Trishan Wirfs didn't start the season. So you knew it wasn't going to be how it was. But, they're only averaging 98 yards per game. The Patriots only allowing 75 yards per game. It's going to be tough sledding there, especially with Bucky still out. Buccaneers scoring offense has not been great either, where the Pats have one of the best scoring defenses, which is crazy because they can't stop anyone in the red zone. They have, the fifth best scoring defense. The Bucs have only averaged about 6 more points than the Pats have let up. They're averaging 24.6 points per game. You're going to have to score, and you're going to have to get out to a hot start too. None more of this lollygagging around, because where the Bucs have really struggled this year, being one of the best teams in the league, is on third down. They're only converting 36.3% of the time. They're like 25th in the league. They've got to be able to extend drives and convert. And again, running the ball is not going to do that for you. I don't think they'll find much success, but you can use your running backs as well as part of that run game by utilizing those screens, those quick dumps, those little wheel routes. Get the ball. I think that's got to be the MO. Just go watch, any Patriots game. Boom, James White. Boom, James White. Quick little pass to Edelman. Quick little pass to Dola. Quick little pass to Hogan. Like, that's what they have to do. I think that's what they're going to need to be able to do, to continuously move the ball down the field and get into the red zone, where, unfortunately, the Bucs scoring in the red zone hasn't been great either. They're ranked 26, only scoring 50% of the time. So the Pats let up 75% of the time. Bucs are only scoring 50% of the time. Average that out. They got 1 touchdown in the red zone against. But, I think that's where you look at, for this Bucs offense, what they need to be able to do. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, Drake May is playing some of the best football out of any quarterback, currently leads all the MVP rankings and everything like that. The Buccaneers have been playing really good defense. I mean, they're only allowing right now 22 points per game, compared to the Patriots, who are scoring. The Patriots are scoring 26 points a game. So, you're holding them. Theoretically, you'll be able to hold them under their average. But they've also been able to do some things against the run too. And their total defense isn't terrible, right in the middle of the pack. But passing defense, Bucs always have a terrible passing defense. They're bend but don't break kind of mentality. But their rushing defense has been straight up there, right where it's been. The 8th in the league, 92.6 yards per game. Trayvon Henderson has been up and down. Ramondre Stevenson is probably not going to play this game. They have Terrell Jennings out there. Antonio Gibson's on IR. So it's going to be the Trayvon Henderson show, with Terrell Jennings making some appearances. And obviously Drake May can beat you with his legs too. But I think that's kind of what you're looking at. And I think that bodes well for the Buccaneers to be able to slow this run game down. No, by the way, Kayshon Boutte has yet to practice. It looks like he's going to be questionable too. So, you're losing a weapon. And it's not like the they have, Stephon Diggs isn't the same Stephon Diggs. Mario Douglas went off last week. Matt Collins is a special teamer who can make some plays here and there. They haven't really gotten anything out of their draft picks in Kyle Williams and Efton Chisholm from this year. I think actually Efton might have been an undrafted free agent signing, but they really haven't gotten much out of them either. The way this team has beat, is going to beat, especially a team like the Bucs, is with their tight ends. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper. I don't know what happened to those two guys. They were bitten by the youth bug, fountain of youth or something up there. But these guys are scoring touchdowns. They're moving the ball, and they're doing it, against, doesn't really matter who it is. Now the Bucs, obviously, they're in a bit of a pickle here because Savassia Dennis has struggled a bit in coverage, and Levante David just isn't the same player he used to be. Now, thankfully, Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper aren't burners, so hopefully, Levante will be able to keep up with them. And where Levante excels is his film breakdown and his studying habits and knowing exactly, where the ball's going based on the formations and based on what he's looking at. So, but I think if you're the Patriots, you're looking kind of do the same thing the Bucs are looking to do. You're looking to attack the linebackers, and you're looking to attack them with the tight ends, attack them with the running backs, get these guys out in space and say, all right, Savassia Dennis, make a tackle in space, or all right, Levante David, try to keep up with XYZ. So I think if you look at what the Pats need to do is, and where they can really be effective moving the ball, it's right there. It's the middle of the field, and it continues. And again, we'll go back to the trade deadline. This is why people wanted them to grab another linebacker, because until you prove it consistently, it is a question mark. And while Voss has had some good plays, in coverage, until he proves it consistently, there's going to be question marks. So, they've got to be able to find a way to close out the middle of the field, because Josh McDaniels is a very, very good OC. Maybe not a good head coach, but a very good OC. As soon as he came back, the first thing he wanted was double tight ends, and they went out and signed tight ends. And last year it was the kid from Miami, not Gaskin. He was Gasecki. He wants to run a 2 tight end set. Line up in 12 personnel. We're going to try to run it down your throat. We're going to create mismatches on the linebackers, and we're going to move the ball. And that's what the Patriots are going to do, or at least are going to try to do. I think that will be a major part of their game plan is to try and attack the middle of the field, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? And another area where this team the Bucs defense really needs to step up is third down defense. So far this year, they are right in the middle of the pack, allowing 38.3% of the time, 38.8% of the time conversions. The Pats have been really good at converting on third down. They're ranked 8th in the league. 42.9% of the time they're converting on third down. So like if you are if you are going to have any chance of winning this game, you need to be able to shut that down for them. Shut that down and shut them down in the red zone. They've struggled in there too. They're only converting 57.6% of the time. 18th in the league at that. The Bucs have had not so much luck on either of those situations in red zone and third down. So things need to change there for them. This is going to be a good game. Tom Brady called it potentially the game of the year, and I think he's right there with. I think he's right hitting the nail on the head. I mean, we're looking at a 6-2 Bucs team versus 7-2, 7-2, or 8-2 rather. Is it 8-2? New England Patriots team, and it's going to be a fun game. Or 7-2 rather. Sorry, 7-2. It's going to be a fun game. I think both of these teams, obviously the last time they met was in Foxborough. Tom Brady's return to the New England and everything like that. Now it's okay. The young kid Drake May coming in, and what can he do? What can he prove? I think the Bucs can win this game, but I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be defensive battle. But I think there'll be some scoring. We'll do like a 24-23. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be close. I'll stick with the Bucs right now, even though I think there's more question marks around the Buccaneers and how they're going to move the ball, how they're going to stop. I feel good about them on defense, but how they're going to move the ball is really my question, and how they're going to stop those tight ends and running backs over the middle. We'll see what they can do. We'll see what the game plan comes up with, but Bucs have a big opportunity right now to steal a win after the bye, because the next 2 games are tough. You're going against Buffalo, and that's still a 1:00 game, but that could get flexed, especially if both teams win this week. And then you're playing Sunday Night Football against the Rams in LA, before you come back. And I mean, the Cardinals, they're 3-5. I don't know what's going on with Kyler Murray. That should be a game you win. Simeon Rice gets into the Ring of Honor, which is going to be great for him. You have the Saints, which you shouldn't murder them again. But then we're going up. You got the Panthers twice, and the Panthers are looking pretty good right now down the line. So you really need to take as many wins and stack as many wins you can after this bye week. And starting with a win against the Patriots would be huge, not only because they're one of the best teams in the league right now, and you can notch another win over a top-tier team, which obviously helps with confidence. It doesn't do anything in the NFC, but, it helps with confidence. It says, hey, we know we can stick around with some of the best teams. You did it with the Eagles, even after you gave them 7 points. You did it. You didn't necessarily do it with Detroit, but it gives you that confidence that you can, hey, we went up against this team and we beat them. And if we see them again, we know we have what it takes. So it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be an interesting game. I can't wait for it. My world's colliding again. I love that. But yeah, if the Bucs can just simply figure out how to move the ball offensively, and again, I think the best way to do that is just take what they're giving you. even if that's stinking dunk and controlling those tight ends. I think they have a good shot at winning this game. My keys to Cane of Fire will be out probably tomorrow over at Bucs Game Day on SI. You'll see those, but we've kind of touched on them right now. Take what they're giving you. Got to shut down the middle of the field, and you got to convert on third down and red zone opportunities. If you do those things, I think the Bucs win. I still think it's close. We'll go Bucs 24-23. But that's going to do it for me here on another episode of the Pirate Parlay podcast. Again, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Everyone listening afterwards on podcast, I appreciate y'all for tuning in for sure. We'll be back next week with a new show and a preview of the Bills. See what we'll talk about. What happened? Is someone going to come back from injury anytime soon? Maybe Reddick, maybe Bucky Irving. We'll see how that all plays out. And we'll recap this game against the Pats. So that's going to do it for me here at the Pirate Parlay podcast. I'm JC Allen. This is Sick Podcast Network, and we're out of here. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.